Okay. Hello, everyone. It's MP here. I am joined by Clare Gray once again. This is our Season 5, Episode 2, The House of Black and White Review and Analysis. Clare, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm hoping that you'll be able to see me and hear me a bit better this week. So I'm not whispering in the dark anymore, fingers crossed. Hopefully the tech is a bit better this time. I'm useless with technology, so we have tried this a couple of times, and it's been I'm sat in my dining room at the moment, and it's a little bit like the command center for the technically inept. So we've managed to get it sorted out finally, hopefully. Yeah, so here we are. Do you want to introduce what we're going to talk about?
No, you go ahead. You had the better plan.
Cool. All right, well, just to remind everybody that it's heavy spoilers. So if you haven't read all 5 books, you may not want to watch this. You might be spoiled. And we're going to try a different approach this week. We're not going to go scene by scene because we presume you've watched the TV show. So we don't want to tell you what you've already seen. We're going to go through this in a slightly different way. However, we are going to talk about our scoring system. So what your links are this week? What do you award? How many links do you award this episode?
I am going to give it a 3 all around. I picked up some cool things in the episode, but up until you broke them down for me, I didn't grab much, but I'm going to give it a 3 all around. I thought it was a great episode, though. I totally enjoyed it.
Okay, that's fair. For me, I'm going to award this 4 links on the Meister's chain, and I wish I could go back and take 1 link off last week's episode, but I know you can't go back and retroactively remove links from the chain, or the world. I don't need to tell you that. Okay, so the reason that I'm giving 4 links, because I think this is heavily deep, this episode, and particularly for me, it made me think differently about the TV show generally. So I think after this episode, I've kind of let go a little bit, and I feel less resistant in terms of my view of the TV show generally. So I would usually be looking at watching a scene and saying immediately, well, that didn't happen in the books, and then getting a bit grumpy about it. But I've changed my view slightly on the TV show as a vehicle because of this episode. I think also Brienne kicks ass, so that's another reason to give an extra link. And I think I just enjoyed it generally, and I know I enjoyed it generally because in last week's episode, I was thinking, when is it over? In this week's episode, it was like, oh, it's finished. And I wanted to see more. So for me, a solid 4 links out of 5 on the Meister's chain.
Very good.
Okay, so we're going to go.
I am happy that you have gotten an appreciation for sort of the things that the show tends to do that might go unnoticed. And you did an amazing job figuring it out this week too, so that's great. What were you saying? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I don't know, maybe I've graduated in the House of Pain, or maybe I still need to study a little bit at the Citadel. Who knows? Okay, so we're not going to scene by scene. We want to draw your attention, first of all, to the appearance of Doran in Dawn in the Water Gardens. So what did you think about this?
I thought the scene itself was absolutely great. Ariel Hota was cool. His long axe was amazing. But the thing I noticed first off, well, maybe not even first off, but in the books, you have Doran watching the children in the water gardens playing their games. And in this scene, there's no children around anywhere. You don't see them or anything. He's just staring off into to space pretty much. But after talking to you, we have realized that the games that he was watching the children play are actually happening all throughout this episode.
Yes. So we actually have picked up on two key themes, really, relating to Doran in the Water Gardens and the children's games. We've got hide and seek, and we've got snakes and ladders. So we were having a conversation about the snake references. You know, I mean, this could be dubbed the snake episode, and we kind of developed our thinking from there. So do you want to talk about the snake references, and I'll talk about the ladder references?
Well, I'll let you take the snake references themselves, but the one I got that struck me the most was the very end when they start hissing at Danny.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see it the first time, but watching it the second time, I think that I saw what they were trying to show us. And that is after she beheads the guy that killed the harpy, the crowd connects, that they hiss, and then they come at each other from these two ends. And if you look at the mountaintop beforehand, it's actually, the people are a snake heading down. So I looked at it as a symbol of a snake eating its own tail, which is called Uroboros, and I might be pronouncing that wrong, which is a common symbol of self-reflection, cyclicality, something constantly recreating itself, something known as the eternal return, which is associated with the phoenix, which there's a lot of phoenix references in A Song of Ice and Fire as well. Creation out of destruction, life out of death, and the fusion of opposites. So those are themes that we'll find all throughout the series, but they are here in this episode as well, especially cyclicality and self-reflection.
So
and I
that's
mentioned that to you.
That's the symbol of the snake or the dragon that's in a circle eating its own tail.
Great point. Yeah, it's commonly seen as a snake eating its own tail, but it's also referenced as a dragon eating its own tail. So why don't you go to the game aspect that you brought after that?
So we've got the hissing in on the hill in Marine. What else have we got?
We had the letter S is all scaled, and of course S snake. Gilly just mentions it flat out.
Yeah.
We have the S's on the Kill the Masters logo. They're actually far larger than the rest of the letters and very serpent looking.
Yep. Obviously, there's a mention of the sand snakes. I also noticed, I don't know if she was wearing this throughout the episode, but certainly at the end, but Danny's dress, the bodice on her dress had scales, so not dragon scales, obviously, but snakes and dragons. And I also thought that grey scale was reminiscent of kind of snakes and snake skin and snake scales. So there's plenty of loaded references to snakes in this particular episode.
Absolutely.
And then
we also mentioned the viper that was sent to Cersei in the box.
Yes, of course. Yeah, the viper
That's
in the
actually
box.
Hiding in a box to begin with, now that I think of it.
Okay.
Hold
that thought. Hold that thought.
Yeah, sorry. Leaping
We've
ahead.
got the snake references, and we have quite a few ladder references. So, for example, we have people moving up and down the ladder in this episode. We've got John being raised up the ladder to Lord Commander, having previously been offered a jump up the ladder from Stannis. We've got Bronn looking up at Stokeworth in the distance. That's his ladder he wants to climb. And, you know, we get some clues about how he's going to get there. or how he wants to get there. Then we have
sorry to interrupt. You should also mention though that technically he just got lowered down the ladder because he had that taken away from him until he helps Jamie. So he wants to climb, but Jamie said, "Nah, you're coming down unless you help me." Which is weird too, because it's a Lannister paying their debts thing, but they can also just take away their payment whenever they feel like it.
I think Cersei's also on the ladder, and in this episode she's starting to slip down. So this is we start to see the beginning of Cersei's descent into madness, which I'm sure is going to be a feature throughout the rest of the series. So there's the snakes and ladders. So when we finish playing snakes and ladders, we might want to play hide and seek. So what references do we have to hiding in this episode?
I can't think of the order of them, but we know Arya is, well, I'll jump that. I'll leave that for you. Sam mentions finding Janis Slint hiding in the ice cells or whatever with Gilly and the babe. I believe he says he found them in there. We have Tyrion and Varys hiding in the box. And we have, I'm missing something. I'm missing one of them.
We've got Sansa hiding in plain sight.
Sansa's hiding in plain sight, absolutely.
Yeah. We've got Doran hiding his long-term plot from Illyria Sand. And we also have obviously the harpy hide, or
that's
been
the harpy
described
like
as
the hide and seek right there explained perfectly.
Yeah,
they're hunting them and then they find them hiding behind the wall for sure.
We also have people seeking in this episode. Excuse me. We have people seeking in this episode. So we've got Brienne and Pod seeking. We've got Dario and Grey Worm seeking the harpy. We've got Jamie and Bronn are going to be off on their travels seeking Marcella. We've got Cersei seeking dwarves. And we've also got Arya seeking Jack and Hagar and the Faceless Men. So, again, plenty of references to hide and seek.
Add one more that's a little bit of comedy. Varys and Tyrion are hiding while seeking the road to the Lannister.
Yeah. So they've got their own little game of hide and seek. So I think that was interesting to point out, that there are kind of children's games, and what we see Doran in the Water Gardens, but we don't see any children playing. The other thing that I wanted to mention in terms of a theme, if we bring it back to the House of Black and White, and what you mentioned about the symbolism around the snake eating its own tail. So there's a duality, I think, there. So you've got black and white, ice and fire. There's also, I think, duality around the coin, the Faceless Men's coin, and also this concept of yin and yang around black and white, the House of Black and White. And there are a couple of scenes where we see things being separated and then coming back together again. So we have visually the image of Brienne and Pod splitting up in the chase and then coming back together again. And we also have Arya throwing the coin away, but that comes back to her again at the end of the episode. So there's maybe we could link that to a children's game, losing something and then finding it again. Yeah.
There's also
or the hide and seek. Yeah.
Just the image of the Titan of Braavos and the leg's reflection in the water. It actually forms this whole, you wouldn't call it a circle, but it is connected from one end to the other if you count the reflection in the water, or this mirroring aspect of it.
Yeah, it's that kind of duality again. So I really like the symbolism in this episode, hence the awarding the 4 links. But I thought if we talk about that first, and then I think if we go through, rather than going through scene by scene, we're going to go through our thoughts and discussions and observations on this episode as characters appear, and then we'll see what how their story develops within the episode. So we do come across Arya first. So obviously she's arriving in Braavos. She's arriving at the House of Black and White. Generally, what I get from this is the question of my question, which I am always looking for answers: will Arya become a faceless man, or will she always retain the Arya Stark? Will she ever become no one? I don't want her to become no one. I want identity. So, you know, what I saw, just something didn't seem right to me in terms of her being inducted into the Faceless Men. So, for example, when she arrives, she knocks on the white door and the kindly man opens the black door. I think when she's shunned away from the door and she sits there and she's kind of, her reaction is to immediately go to something that comforts her and reinforces her identity, which is the list. And she also asserts herself by throwing the coin away. So to me, it means that Arya is and will always be her own boss. And that's the introduction to that story arc for me. So there was a few things that I noticed about Arya arriving and whether or not this is going to be something that tells us whether or not she'll be a faceless man. I believe, and I want to believe, that Arya is her own boss and she will remain Arya Stark. And that's really all I got from Arya in this particular episode. I do think that I was thinking about it today, actually. There's a scene where she decapitates a pigeon straight off, head chopped off the pigeon. And it just reminded me of other beheadings that we've seen, particularly in this episode. So again, it just reminded me of that. About the Titan of Braavos, whenever I see it's very imposing and it's very, it's there in the background and it's just visually it's wonderful. And it's so heavily linked to Arya that it just makes me think, is there going to be a statue of Arya at some point? I can just see like a statue of Arya with Nymeria wrapped around her feet, so that, again, that's just my,
Yes, absolutely. I have more than breaking down Arya's scenes. I just have a couple questions, but I think that is Jaqen H'ghar in the House of Black and White, or did the kindly man just put on Jaqen H'ghar's face, or has the kindly man always been Jaqen H'ghar in the books, or that character who met Arya that we call Jaqen H'ghar?
Yeah, I mean, clearly from a production point of view, they wanted that actor to come back, so this fits in quite neatly. And the only thing, it just gives me a question of, this is what I struggle with always, and we talked about this when we did the Mercy video with Tony, is, do you have to die to become a faceless man, or do you just over time lose your identity and become no one? So it's confusing, Jaqen H'ghar being there, because obviously I'm going back to the snobby book reader position, but in the books we know that he's in Old Town round about that time.
We assume that's him in Old Town. We see him put on that face, but as it could be that everybody can just change faces at random all the time. So who knows? I'm pretty sure that he's in Old Town too. I'm just playing devil's advocate. Can
two people use the same face at the same time? I don't know. So it's that confuses me. Is Jaqen dead, or is he just no one? And obviously from a production point of view, they've used him quite cleverly in the TV show, and I'm fine with that. I think he's a great actor, and I think there's going to be some interesting scenes between Jack and as face of the kindly man. Yeah.
The other question, did you see him when he took off his face? Did you notice that you actually saw it come off this time?
Oh, no, I didn't notice that.
At the end, it's almost like you see Jackin's face appear, and then right near the end, he pulls this morphed image off, and it's almost like he's holding it in his hand because you don't really see where it goes. But I thought that was pretty cool that you actually see it this time. It's not just a new face.
Brilliant. So it's like a magic trick. Okay, should we move on?
Sure, lay it on me. I don't have my notes sorted, so I'm just gonna pop in here and there.
We'll try and prompt each other.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next area that we move to is the Riverlands. So we've got Sansa and Littlefinger and Brienne and Pod in the inn. I think there's probably quite a few subtle things going on here, but I think the majority of TV watchers are going to be watching that scene and just thinking, oh, we had such high hopes for Sansa and she's kind of reverted back into this, you know, most hated character, generally from a TV show only point of view, which was a bit disappointing. But I think there are real subtleties within the entire scene. I think that I missed it the first time, but when I rewatched, the mention of Littlefinger and the marriage proposal has been accepted, and that was just kind of sort of skirted over. So we don't know who's getting married. You know, it is presumably he's made some arranged marriage with Sansa. Again, that's really quite advanced in terms of parallels to where we are in the books. So I'm guessing that's going to be explored a little bit further. You noticed something about Brienne observing which direction they were going in.
Yeah, now it's apparently, she says that she saw them leaving on the East Road, which is, again, one of these things that make no clear direction available to us. Doesn't seem to make sense. Because they were going west, now they're going east.
Now they've been spotted on the East Road, so they seem to be going. Is it, well, again, a bit of a confusing journey.
I'm just going to turn the light on. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Keep talking.
So I don't know whether they're going to end up in Winterfell or not. I presume so, and I'm wondering who the marriage proposal is.
Yeah, because Sansa seems to think that it was Littlefinger, because she mentions, "Are you over my Aunt Lysa already?" So she assumes that he's talking about himself.
Yeah.
One thing of note that sorry, go ahead, Claire. I thought you were finished.
No. I was just saying it was an interesting observation, but carry on.
The one thing I found interesting is that in this situation they have Sansa seated with her back up against the wall. She can't. She's hemmed in. She can't make the proper decision. And when Brienne tells her that sometimes we don't have a choice, and then she says, and sometimes we do, there's this quick look that Sansa makes, and it's at the guards standing right next to her. Like, she just flashes this look at the guards as she says that. And then she tells Brienne, you should leave now. Like, sort of, get out of here, save yourself, and then come back for me. This is my theory in it anyways.
That's brilliant. So what she's actually doing in that moment is saving Brienne's life.
That's where my head's going with it, because of that one little look where it's super quick, but she flashes it at the guards, and then immediately after says, you should leave now. And then Littlefinger steps in and says, no, why don't you stay with us?
That's great. So basically, yeah, so what she's saying is, sometimes we do have a choice. I'm choosing to save your life. Go. But obviously, Brienne doesn't understand that. But that was great. I like that. Okay, we're going to move on to King's Landing and King's Landing, etc. So there's you know, just the general sort of main areas in Westeros. So we've got King's Landing, Dawn, and Jaime and Bronn scene. And there are three key sort of areas here. We've got Cersei in King's Landing with Qyburn, Cersei at the small council, and Cersei having the conversation with Jaime. Generally, to me, within this episode, it's just constant examples of Cersei just losing her grip and descending it into madness. She's also, I mean, if we think of the hide and seek and Jaime going off to seek Marcella, you've also got Cersei just at the point of descending down, and the person that gives her strength, who she likes being around, obviously, is Jaime, and he's going off. She's going to be feeling quite isolated and on her guard, which is, you know, Cersei in a vulnerable position is a dangerous Cersei. We know that.
Yeah, in my mind too, when she seats herself on the seat of the hand of the king, she's actually feeling elevated. She feels like she's in power. We know that that's not necessarily the case. She might have actually be thinking that she's ascended a rung on the ladder.
Yeah.
I don't myself have much on King's Landing, aside from whether or not, like, is it ever mentioned if they're returning the Mountain's Head, or are we just going to be skipping by that? I mean, we get the Dwarf's Head, but we haven't heard any mention of bringing the Mountain's Head to Dorne, have we?
No.
So I'm wondering if we're going to skip over that completely, or if Bronn perhaps might fill the role of Balon Swan.
Yeah, Balon Swan, possibly. Yeah. So, is Bronn going to survive this series? It's questionable.
Well, Balon Swan survives. He's still around. They get slowed down and messed about, and it's Oakhart, and I don't know if we have anybody. You were the one that reminded me of Eris Oakhart, but I don't know if we have anybody filling that role on the show either.
Well, that's going to be difficult because we also don't have Arianne. So to me, it's quite clear that Ilaria Sand, in the conversation that she had with Doran in the Water Gardens, she is replacing Arianne. And it's the only book, get up on my soapbox, that I'll just rant about for 1 second, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I am so pissed off that they left Arianne out of the TV show, because I think she's pivotal. And also, I'm trying to think of who's in one of Bar's videos, a comment a few weeks ago, in one of Bar's, Elliot Crescent, and he made a perfect comment about Arianne being missing from the TV show, in that what hurts even more is we know that there's a much fairer system in Dawn in terms of gender politics, and we know that. So basically, what they've done is they've cut out the heir to Dawn, who's a woman, and again they've taken away Dawn's identity as being better, in most people's opinions,
more civilized democratic society.
Yeah, politically in Westeros. And I just think so yeah, that brilliant comment from Elliot on Bar's channel. Totally agree with him. And I'm just mightily pissed off that clearly I still had some hopes for Arianne appearing at some point, but obviously not. I mean, the actress who plays Ilaria is fantastic. But in terms of politically, she has no that there is no agency for her story in terms of becoming the heir to Dawn. And I just think that's such a shame that they've done that. But, you know, decisions need to be made, I guess. I mean, we've kind of talked about Jamie and Bronn, and we've talked about Dawn, and we've talked about King's Landing. Obviously, we spotted Marcella and Tristan in the water gardens looking quite cosy. I'm guessing that's going to be explored in a bit more detail as we move on through the series. Are we ready to move across the narrow sea to Essos and Meereen?
Sure.
Okay. So there's a few things here. Before we get to Dany, we've got Tyrion and Varys on the road in the comfortable box, and Varys mentions that they're going to Volantis and then to Meereen. So that sounds like they're going to have plenty of adventures to come on their road trip to see Daenerys. So that's going to be quite interesting. I thought that the fact that they're in a box was a bit of a throwback to an episode in a previous season where the sorcerer, Varys had the sorcerer delivered in the box and opened the lid. So it's like, you know, they're now in a box. So that's all I got really from Tyrion and Varys. I don't know if there's anything you want to say about that scene.
No, not offhand at the moment. There's definitely some stuff going on there, but it's sort of off topic.
Okay.
Really relate.
Let's move on to Meereen. So we've got several things happening here. We've got the Harpy being discovered. We've got Daenerys and her version of the Small Council with Barristan talking to her about the Mad King. We've got the killing of the Harpy. With the and then we have the public beheading of the ex-slave who took out the Harpy, and then we've got the very end scene with on the pyramid with Drogon. I just want to say quickly that one of the things that smacked me in the face was when the character who's playing the Harpy was wearing quite bright, obvious green robes, which just made me think of the Green Grace. So maybe that's the TV's version of kind of introducing the concept of the Green Grace. And well, obviously the Green Grace is female, but you know, maybe we will see her later on down the line. I doubt it, but I like the fact that the Harpy was in green robes. Just one little thing that I'll mention again that I mentioned last week because I'm obsessed with Arya is Mercy is mentioned again a couple of times in this episode, particularly around fairness and forgiveness. So Barristan talks about Mercy in terms of a fair trial, and also the crowd are screaming for forgiveness and mercy for the ex-slave. So it just makes me think about Arya, and it makes me think, does this mean that the gift of mercy includes forgiveness? So is Arya going to save somebody? Does the gift of mercy always have to mean that she kills somebody? So is somebody going to be forgiven at some point down the line? And the only other thing that I wanted to say about this whole part of the episode in Meereen, the very end scene, again, similar back to a previous season, when Dany reaches out for Drogon at the end, reminded me of when she had the TV vision of the House of the Undying, where she reaches for the Iron Throne but doesn't quite touch it. It's kind of not quite within her reach. So again, that reminded me of that. That's pretty much, I'm sure I'll add to your discussions, but that's kind of pretty much what I got from Meereen this episode.
The Drogon thing, I mean, I agree with you. It's very similar to that scene of the House of the Undying. I'm wondering if he's going to be a vessel to direct her to where she needs to go, where in the House of the Undying show vision, she reaches for the throne and then stops and realizes is that where she goes to see Khal Drogo after that? I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But there's something else that she wants to do instead. I think Drogon might be that sort of guide for her. That
yeah, yeah.
The one thing that I have to add is that Dany fucked up because she does not give the guy that killed the Harpy a trial. She just executes him. She promises to give the Harpy a trial for murdering her men, but when one of her men murders the Harpy and a lower class citizen in this world, she just executes him right away without giving him a trial. To me, that's where she fucked up royally in that scene.
And I think she probably slid down a couple of rungs on the ladder if we're thinking about the Snakes and Ladders game as well.
Absolutely. And that's why Drogon appears and says, come on, do better.
Okay, let's talk about the wall.
Go for it.
Ooh, right. There's a few things here. So we've got my favourite scene. I thought was incredible in the library. So it's kind of like, you know, reading with Shireen. We've got Sam, Gilly, and Shireen, and then joined by Selyse towards the end of that scene. We have the discussion about grayscale, obviously. Then later on, we move on to Stannis and Jon having their conversation, and then we've got the kind of elections and the campaigning for the new position for Lord Commander. So that's kind of what's happening at the wall. So if we take those bit by bit, I think that first scene with Sam, Gilly, and Shireen quite clearly was a pointed reference to readers reading, and if you when Gilly says I know S, to me that just meant I know shit, because she's only just started learning how to read. If you replace the word practice with reread, you've got Shireen saying when she was isolated as a child, poor kid, she had a lot of time to practice. So replace that with I had a lot of time to reread. And also Sam says to Gilly, the more you practice, the faster you'll be able to read. So again, replace the word practice with reading and rereading and kind of theory casting and that kind of, so that made me smile. I thought it was a good reference to us as readers. And as you know, Selyse picked up the books at the end and says, all your books and you still don't know. Perfect. Best quote of the episode.
I really like that part. But yeah, you do get this aspect of Gilly saying, I can't read, I don't know shit. And then Selyse at the end of it says, all your books, and you still don't know, which I love. That makes me quite happy, actually.
Okay, so right, I've got to say this because I can't remember whether I've come across this before, but I was watching the episode here in the UK on Monday night with a friend who kind of introduced me to the TV show originally, and they've also read the books as well. And when the conversation was taking place about grayscale, he said, do you think that grayscale is some kind of genetic mutation, throwback kind of crossbreeding between dragons and humans, and with grayscale kind of originating that side of the narrow sea? I know that there are lots and lots of theories about grayscale and what it is and what the implications are and, you know, where it came from. I personally haven't heard that one before, and it just made me kind of, I laughed it off initially, and then I kind of scratched my head and thought, actually. So I did start thinking about it a bit more. So it is that, you know, it's just looks so similar to snake skin, and you know, snakes and dragon, that kind of reptilian, just the appearance of it. And you know, we know that Shireen recovered from a bout of this when she was a child, but it kind of left her scarred, and you know, perhaps she's now has an immunity to it. I think there's definitely something there around Shireen and dragons, and Shireen's relationship with dragons. I mean, she dreams about a dragon. So there's all sorts of theories about that, grayscale and also Shireen. Let us know. I haven't heard that one before, and it just made me think, I don't know. So let us know what you think. Could grayscale be some kind of throwback genetic crossbreeding gone wrong between humans and dragons, and this is the kind of residue from it? And if, you know, what implications does that have? So let us know what you think.
I don't know.
Should we move on to Stannis? Should we move on to Stannis and Jon?
I'll just point out one thing. There's a couple things, and Stannis is the election you haven't touched on yet too. But the Gilly learning how to read, and when she talks to Sam about Sir Ostrich Stark, that's another thing that reminds me of children learning growing up. You get your shapes in your animals. We'll see shapes with Maester Aemon a bit later. So it's more of these like little kid sort of hints and games that kids do and what they do to learn throughout this episode. That's really kind of brilliant. But take us to where you want.
This episode was a bit like a fucked up episode, Westerosi version of Sesame Street.
Yeah, this episode is brought to you by the letter S.
Yeah, and we can play children's games. We can play children's games, and we can learn shapes. So we've got circles for the tokens, and the triangles and the squares. We've got the coin in Bravos, which is, you know, there's lots of kind of tokens, coins, shapes, which we can kind of throw into the learning as children, and playing those children's games, which is, I just think is amazing.
Yeah, when you tied the concept together, I had mentioned the snakes and the hiding, but Claire, in a matter of seconds, was, well, snakes and ladders, hide and seek, and just like, oh yeah. And then I read the Ariel Hotah chapter in Feast, and realizing that he's standing there overlooking, watching the children play games, and how that's left out of this episode. How she just nailed it, absolutely.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So, I mean, that was a great scene with Stannis and Jon, and I imagine that a lot of people were on the edge of their seats with the, is he going to finally become Jon Stark? Is this going to, you know, is our boy going to get is just kind of just desserts from Stannis? And poor Stannis was, you know, I think he was expecting Jon to accept, but obviously he makes his own decision. There was, you know, I thought it was pointed out quite heavily about Jon Snow being the key to the North. You know, Stannis makes that point when he tries to offer Winterfell about being the key to the North. But yeah, then we move on to the scene with the in Castle Black with Aemon, who's just an incredible actor. He's one of my favourites. He's one of my favourite characters in the book, but I think he's portrayed beautifully by whoever it is, but the guy who plays him in the TV show. There's just a couple of things really that I wanted to say about this. I thought that, now this is an example of under normal circumstances, I would be like, that didn't happen in the book. That didn't, what's going on here? This, I'm not happy about this. There was this, it was completely in the books. But actually, I thought, given the production constraints that they have and the time that they have, because there's a long protracted kind of campaigning in the books with Sam between the different towers. And, you know, there's a lot of kind of spin doctrine he does from a political kind of viewpoint, which I thought was brilliant. And so how do you get something like that from the books into the TV show to kind of let everybody know that Sam's done a really good job here? And I think the speech, as quick as it was, and as, oh God, that happened quickly. I thought it was I thought it was like, yay, Sam. So I was quite pleased with that. The only other thing that I would say is, again, the reference to the 998th Lord Commander, and it just it was kind of like, well, maybe we need to think about rounding. You know, who would be the 1000th Lord Commander?
Yeah.
And if you think about it, so John's now 998th. For the heavy spoilers, but from the books, we know that you know, something's happened to John. It may be that during the time that he's out of action or he's out of commission, that there is another Lord Commander that takes his place, becoming the 999th. And then maybe when John is resurrected, he retakes that place as the 1000th Lord Commander, which I think could be quite interesting if whoever's going to be the 1000th Lord Commander of the Wall is likely to be the last Lord Commander of the Wall, if the Wall comes down by the end of the season. And you know, I'm obsessed with the Wall and the Wall coming down and who's going to bring it down. Last Commander, last hero. So that was my only kind of thoughts that really kind of jumped out at me from that scene. But what did you think?
Not so much. I agree with you that Sam, that was a good way to tie that all together. The one thing I thought that was really cool is John being offered everything he's ever wanted and just basically has it handed to him, but he refuses because he does the honorable thing and wants to earn his place. I don't even believe at this time he's thinking about Lord Commander, but he knows that he's going to be going against himself, and he doesn't, which is great.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I loved this episode. And it was one of those where on first kind of, you know, sort of superficial watch, you kind of think, oh yeah, it's, you know, it's better than the first episode. I quite liked it. And then you sit back and think about it, or you rewatch it and it's like, wow, actually the symbolism it runs deep in this episode, definitely. What was your favorite scene?
Oh, the reading scene. Absolutely the reading scene. I thought it was great. I love any time the show does stuff like that, especially when it's obvious that, hey, we're talking to you, book readers. It makes me smile. And I do that rarely.
Yeah. I agree. That was also my favorite scene.
One thing I forgot to mention. Go ahead, and then I'll tie it up. Okay, I'm taking us back to Doran Martell. Last episode, Danny made the remark of an angry viper will lash out and it's easier to cut its head off, which is the exact opposite of Doran. He's not angry. He's this cool, calculating guy. The Sand Snakes might be that reference, or she was referencing Oberyn. Well, not her referencing, but foreshadowing. But yeah, Doran is the complete opposite of that, which I thought was really cool as well. Now,
excellent,
sorry.
No. I've pretty much finished. I mean, we're hoping to do. I don't know how long this took, but we're hoping to be a bit quicker than we were last week. We're also hoping now that we've, fingers crossed, managed to get the technology to work. I shouldn't say that because the bots have probably just heard me. I think we're hoping to get this out a little bit earlier so that it doesn't clash with, you know, your appearance in the small council. So we will hopefully try to get this out maybe on a Tuesday rather than Wednesday. But now that we've got the tech improved, fingers crossed, everybody, we'll be getting this out on Tuesdays. Yeah.
Yes, we tried the last 2 weeks to get it out on Tuesdays, and we've just been beat up every time we attempted. So hopefully things have worked themselves out now. Need to get you a better camera though.
Well, yeah, I just need a better laptop. This one's like gas powered. Anyway. Okay, so thanks very much, MP. Thanks for having me. Brilliant
Anytime.
Episode. Always enjoy discussing it with you, and I'll see you next week.
You bet. And thank you for coming, and thank you for persisting and making this possible. It is always much better with you here. Thanks for watching, everybody, and we will see you hopefully Tuesday next week. Bye.
Bye.